So the jig, I mean, you know, do you want to throw 1 ounce lures with 11-foot rod? I really don't. So I try to match my tackle to what I'm throwing. So in most cases, especially on the Sound, on the ocean beaches, I'm using a 9-foot medium action graphite to do bucktailing because that's what I want to throw 1 ounce with. I don't want to do that with an 11-footer. Now, of course, Montauk's a little bit different, right? A lot of times you're in a crowded situation. You've got sweep, you've got some current, you need some stopping power. I'll bump it up a little there, but honestly, what I'm probably bumping up to is maybe I have a 9-footer that's a little beefier that I use for that. Maybe I'll go to the 10, but I don't use the 11-footer with the bucktails too much for the open beach bucktailing because it's just not, to me, a good match. Definitely braided line. Nobody uses monofilament line anymore for surf fishing, right? Probably. I don't know. There's always a few people that still use it. You still use it. Okay. Wow. And you fish in the inlet. That's amazing. Yeah. That's amazing. Why don't you use braid? I'm just curious.
I don't know.
Okay. So why should you use braid is because it's got a very high strength to diameter ratio.
And
so like when I used to fish the inlets back in the days of mono, use 20-pound mono. It's probably what you're using.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
All right. Okay, so now I use 50-pound braid. But my 50-pound braid has a diameter of 12-pound test mono. So I have a thinner line, but it's got more than twice the strength. Okay, so there's one winner right there. You ever get a fish up along the rocks in there? I'm not picking on you, but
no, you're right. Absolutely.
You get a fish in the rocks. If it goes in with 20-pound monofilament, what happens? Gone. Yeah. If you go in with 50-pound braid, good chance you're getting that fish out of there. The braid's very, very abrasion resistant. But the big one for inlet fishing, no stretch. Boy, you set, especially in the inlet, you've got 20-pound mono out there, you've got the current moving, so now you've got this belly in the line caused by the current. When you set the hook, you got the bend of the rod, you're picking up this belly, and you're trying to drill probably an 8/0 hook into the mouth of a bass that's probably at least 15 pounds. I mean, this is the inlet fishing, these are larger bass, and certainly you're fishing for 20, 25, and 30-pound bass. I got to tell you, when braid came out in the mid-90s and then I used it, and then one day went back to the mono, it felt like I was using a big rubber band. That's the way it felt. It was like, what was that? Because you get so used to the good hook set. The other part of the no stretch is sensitivity. You feel everything. I mean, a graphite rod, no stretch line, you feel everything going on the end of your line. So, all right, so there's my braid spiel, I guess. And as far as, so if you have problems with braid, because sometimes people use braids and, well, I got wind knots, yeah, you don't get them so much with bucktails because the wind knots really occur because you retrieve your line without a lot of tension on it. So plugging, this really happens because maybe you got a light plug. There's not a lot of tension on the line when you're reeling it, so the line gets wrapped on the spool very loosely. Not so much of a problem with bucktails because they're usually dragging through the water, there's some resistance on the line, wraps the spool a little bit tighter. If you have problems with braided line, try fire line. And I don't mean the fire line braid, I mean the original black fire line. It's really not a braid, it's heat fused line. Braided line is they take the strands, they braid them together. Something like fire line is heat fused, where they heat fuse the strands together. The downside is it's a little bit thicker than the braids. The upside is carefree. It's like, when my kids were like 8, 10 years old, they used to cast with it. Absolutely no problem.